Hi, welcome back, everyone. In our last HR Market Pulse, we discussed some key trends and expectations for the HR organization of the future. One of the big trends we're seeing in the market is around how to rapidly upskill or reskill resources and facilitate talent mobility across the organization. So today, Stacey Cadigan's with me, and we are going to take a closer look at the reskilling trend. Stacey, can you talk about what we're seeing?
Yeah, so thanks, Kelly. As we look at the topic of reskilling, we're really seeing it from two different perspectives. So first, it's from organizations that are trying to look and plan for the future. So as their organizations, innovate, adopt new operating models or new technologies and require some new skill sets, looking ahead to what they need in the future. I think many of us have probably seen some of those studies out, in the market in terms of just very significant gaps, either in the skill sets needed for the future, today, or what's anticipated really over the next couple of years. Some organizations have had, some announcements, some very, significant initiatives around it. Amazon, for one, who had announced their upskilling initiative for 2025. They've, pledged $700 million in some upskilling programs, in areas such as machine learning or software engineering, some different aspects. So certainly a lot in the market just in terms of, how organizations kind of make that shift forward to what's required. And then the second dynamic that we're really seeing is just from the standpoint around kind of the last 6 to 7 months and the challenges that, that's brought in the current environment. So how do we reskill and bring employees in and out of roles quickly? So a lot of organizations, have been hit over the last 6 to 7 months, whether it's been, lost jobs, whether it's been furloughs, hiring freezes, or, other impacts. And so they've had to do more with less and move people into different high priority areas, of the organization. And so during this time, we've just seen organizations really have to adapt and innovate in some of these changing business circumstances. And so, reskilling has emerged not just as a long-term people strategy, but also how do we, really handle the immediate needs to mobilize our talent and show our resilience kind of moving forward. So, the extent to which companies can, really reskill and mobilize their workforce will be, we think, a big factor in terms of the productivity and their ability to achieve, success moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. So where do we start? Where do you start?
So, in its simplest form, it's about, creating a roadmap. So first, just outlining the skills that the organization needs in the future. So creating the list of roles that are required now or anticipated over the next 6 to 12 plus months. And being specific around the skills needed, the proficiency levels needed, and then prioritizing, those efforts against what are the company's biggest priorities. And then secondly, really identifying the skill gaps that exist between the current workforce and then what is needed in the future, and comparing and analyzing the skills that are required. We're seeing some newer tools in the market, such as Fathom, where it enables you to kind of select a current role, such as a payroll clerk, and it will show, leveraging AI, kind of run profiles of the workforce against their algorithm. And it might show, for example, 38% of these tasks will be automated in 5 years. And then select a new target role and then understand some of those adjacent skill sets, and then produce a report showing here's the gap, in job attributes to be able to kind of pivot to the desired role. So there's some new innovation in the market around, this topic. But whether you're leveraging a market leading tool or really it's more of a manual effort, the point is really, how, you capture the current skill sets and, and what that, looks like compared to a clear understanding of what you need moving forward in the future. And then the third step is really to establish the plan to close that gap. So create some reskilling opportunities, within the organization. So create new learning opportunities, work with managers to create, maybe, short-term or long-term projects, really advertise those, opportunities across the organization, create, an internal marketplace and promote those opportunities. So whether it's, via campaigns within the organization or email announcements or sharing versus, some of the collaboration tools, getting information out, sharing courses or videos or articles that can help with professional development and, really, promoting it within the organization and working with managers, making sure they're communicating with employees in terms of opportunities that they can develop.
Yeah, thanks, Stacey. That's really helpful information. So I know we'd asked about reskilling in last week's peer pulse poll. And the question we posed was, what are the skills you would most like to develop in HR business partners? So if we take a look at our poll results here, broader organization influence was the clear #1 answer, followed by analytic thinking and process and design thinking. Stacey, I see you've got some tips for organizations and leaders who are embarking on these reskilling initiatives. Can you tell us more about those?
Yeah, so I think the top one here aligns, with the poll that you just, cited. So, with the trend we're seeing, really around the need for some of those higher cognitive skills and more agile resources. So, particular for HR, it's finding, skilled HR professionals that can really operate kind of cross-functionally. They could be deployed to key projects as needed throughout the organization, are empowered to kind of make decisions and really highly capable of operating in a more agile way. So that's one of the, the big sort of demand areas that we're seeing. Another trend we're seeing around the HR business partners is really that shift to a more strategic role as organizations implement new technology or, shift some of that transactional work, to self-service or to automation. And as part of that shift, we often see organizations kind of redefining the role or redefining the job, responsibilities, but not necessarily investing in the reskilling, so the focus here is not just on, retitling it or redefining the job, but really making sure that you are reskilling and upskilling, resources to be able to perform effectively in the role. The third item here is just around, keeping it specific and measurable. So obviously data is going to be critical to understanding what's working well, and creating some metrics to identify, some successes. So, you might want to understand the number of projects that have been created or the learning that's been taken and measure some of the, the output of that and understand, some of the areas that are working well and maybe where some areas need improvement. And then conducting kind of that periodic skills analysis to see how you're progressing against closing some of those skill gaps. The fourth tip here was really around considering new solutions and partnerships. So equipping the organization with the right tools, to be successful. I mentioned just one example, of a tool earlier, Fathom. There's others in the market. And also, we're also seeing some, nice partnerships being formed, whether it's with universities, or other, public institutions or other organizations to really, try to attack this issue. And then the last one here is just making sure that you're really, using, communications and change, strategies to take away the fear from employees. So it's critical that any, reskilling initiative that you're sharing the vision, that you're communicating consistently, you're letting the team know why, this, initiative is important. Recognizing positive behaviors that are happening and making sure that, you're having ongoing touch-based meetings, with employees and have some open channels for questions along the way. And so leaders can really do play a strong role in making sure that kind of take, some of the unknown and some of the fear away from employees as part of this process. So ultimately, the organization that's able to, to adapt the fastest will be best positioned to drive the company forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks for sharing that helpful information with us. And thanks again to all who chimed in on last week's poll. Please continue to share your thoughts on our poll questions each week. And that's all for today. We'll see you all back next week for a deeper dive into the topic of Agile HR.
Thank you.